The desire to live is to remain alive inside a false version of yourself. It is the brutal weight of trying to exist far from your essence, far from your soul, far from the truth that Rumi points to as the lost center of the human being. In this video, I will show you 10 steps to tear off these masks and begin expressing who you truly are before your soul hardens completely. And if you stay until the end, you will understand exactly what you must destroy within yourself in order to finally awaken. Step 1. Admit with brutal honesty that you are not being who you truly are. Admitting with brutal honesty that you are not being who you truly are is the first real cut into the lie that sustains your life. This step hurts because it does not only touch habits, it touches identity. Rumi returns many times to the theme of inner separation, and the beginning of the Masnavi already emerges from this lament. The flute torn from the reed bed cries because it has been separated from its origin. This image does not speak only of God in a lofty sense, it also illuminates the pain of a human soul living far from its center. When you admit that you are not being who you truly are, you begin to hear that sound within yourself. Most people do not suffer only because life is difficult. They suffer because they are divided. On the outside, they sustain an image. On the inside, they carry a truth that has been pushed down. Rumi understood life as a journey of return to unity with the real. And this requires love, yes, but it also requires stopping the habit of living as a fractured being. Your best version cannot be born while half of you tries to please the world and the other half begs simply to breathe. Admitting this is hard because it destroys the excuse that the problem always lies only outside. In the classical Sufi path, this division was treated with great precision. Al-Qushayri describes the Sufis as those who protected their hearts from the attacks of forgetfulness and kept every breath oriented toward God. This is rare and profound because it shows that the central problem was not merely wrong behavior, but forgetfulness of the center. When you are not being who you truly are, you are in a state of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness of the soul, of truth, of the living heart. Brutal honesty begins when you stop calling this forgetfulness a normal routine. Rumi does not push you toward a prettier version of the character. He pushes toward the fall of what is false. This aligns with the spirit of the entire Sufi path, not to decorate the self, but to pass through it. In simple terms, improving the appearance of the ego is useless if the heart remains suffocated. That is why admitting that you are not being who you truly are is not weakness. It is the beginning of cleansing. It is the moment when you stop defending the mask as if it were your own skin. The ancient Sufi masters treated this as something radical. Ibrahim ibn Adam, for example, appears in Al-Qushayri's writings as someone who, in the middle of a hunt, heard a voice confronting him. You were not created for this. The value of this narrative is not only in the miracle of the story, but in its spiritual structure. The human being runs after things, distracted, accelerated, identified with the hunt of life, until something pierces him from within and interrupts him. This is exactly the point of brutal honesty, when something inside you says that the life you are living is not the life for which your soul was made. You can spend years without admitting this because the ego knows how to protect itself very well. It loves elegant explanations. It takes fear and calls it prudence. It takes cowardice and calls it maturity. It takes self-erasure and calls it peace. But the heart knows. In the Sufi vocabulary, the heart is not merely emotion, it is a place of perception. Al-Ghazali also works along this line when he treats the heart as the place that can reflect truth when it is purified. Therefore, admitting that you are not being who you truly are means beginning to clean the mirror instead of continuing to blame the world for the darkness of the reflection. Rumi is profound precisely because he does not speak of human pain as a simple psychological drama. He touches pain as distance from the origin, and that changes everything, because then emptiness is not merely sadness, it is separation. Anguish is not merely exhaustion, it is inner exile. The sensation of living on autopilot is not merely disorganization, it is distance from the axis. When you honestly admit that you are not being who you truly are, you stop anesthetizing this pain with distractions and begin to treat it as a signal that the soul has not yet given up on you. Farid al-Din Attar, who came before Rumi and deeply influenced him, shows something similar in The Conference of the Birds. The birds cross valleys to find the king they seek, and in the end, the encounter forces them to see themselves differently. This tradition matters here because it shows that the spiritual path is not merely about finding answers, it is about enduring the mirror. And this is the point almost no one wants to live. Everyone wants to awaken, but few want to calmly look at how much they are still hiding behind a personality built to survive. Junaid of Baghdad, one of the central references of classical Sufism, became known for spiritual sobriety. This also matters for your theme, because admitting that you are not being who you truly are is not an emotional outburst or a chaotic explosion. It is sobriety, it is lucidity, it is leaving the intoxication of self-illusion, it is stopping the confusion between temporary intensity and deep truth. Brutal honesty is not theater, it is steady clarity, the moment when you see, without exaggeration, but also without escape, that your present life does not correspond to what is most real within you. In Sufism, there is also the language of the nafs, the qalb, and the ruh. In very simple terms, the nafs is the self that pulls toward possession, fear, pride, and defense. The qalb is the heart that can turn toward truth. The ruh is the spiritual breath, the highest principle of life. Many classical authors worked with this inner anatomy. It helps greatly here because it shows that your conflict is not as confusing as it seems. One part of you wants to continue being validated. Another part wants to return to truth. Admitting that you are not being who you truly are is realizing that the nafs has been commanding too much, while the heart has been listening too little. That is why this first step is not simple self-analysis. It is a spiritual turning point. As long as you do not admit your present falseness, every idea of a better version becomes makeup. You simply reorganize the prison. You change the language, change the routine, change the appearance, but you continue living in exile from yourself. Rumi is dangerous in the best sense because he does not allow you to stop at the surface. His power lies in pushing a person to the place where they realize, the greatest suffering in my life may be continuing to sustain an identity that does not honor the truth of my soul. Step 2. Stop sustaining masks created to please, fit in, and be accepted. Stopping the maintenance of masks created to please, fit in, and be accepted is one of the most painful acts of awakening, because the mask almost never looks like a mask. It looks like education, adaptation, social intelligence, maturity. Yet inside, it charges a silent price. The more you use a face to be loved, the less air remains for your truth to breathe. Rumi circles around this deeply when he insists on the contrast between appearance and essence, shell and kernel, form and inner reality. In Sufism, this problem is not small. It touches the heart of the path because the search is not to appear true, but to become true. The mask is born early. It appears when you notice that certain parts of you receive love while others receive silence, reproach, or abandonment. So you learn to edit your own soul. You learn what to show, what to hide, what to soften, what to amputate. Gradually you become someone functional for the world, but strange to yourself. And this strangeness grows until it becomes a fatigue without a name. In the end, sustaining masks means spending life maintaining a version of yourself that was built to survive, not to express who you truly are. Rumi does not approach this superficially. The opening image of the Masnavi, the flute cut from the reed bed, already carries the idea that the truest human sound emerges from the pain of separation. The mask tries to cover exactly this pain. It helps you look whole while you are divided. It helps you look adjusted while your soul is in exile. And the danger is that when the mask works too well, you begin to confuse external acceptance with inner truth. This is one of the most dangerous illusions in spiritual life. The ancient Sufi masters often spoke about SIDQ, inner truthfulness, truth in being, truth without duplicity. Al-Ghazali treated truth and sincerity as real states of the heart, not moral poses. This is rare and precious for this subject because it shows that removing the mask is not merely being spontaneous. It is refusing to live in duplicity. It is reducing the distance between what you appear to be and what you truly are before God, before yourself, and before your conscience. As long as this distance remains large, your best version cannot awaken. It remains trapped behind the character. Junaid of Baghdad, a central figure in classical Sufism, was associated with sobriety and truth without exhibitionism. This matters here because many people think abandoning the mask means dramatizing authenticity. It does not. In the deepest Sufi path, removing the mask is not becoming a spectacle. It is stopping the falsification of presence. It is becoming simple, less divided, no longer using behavior as a stage to conquer value. The mask always wants to produce an effect. Truth does not need to perform so much. There is an even harsher point. The mask does not only serve to please others, it also protects you from facing your own inner nakedness. Because when the mask falls, your needs appear. Your fears, your hunger for validation, your dependence on recognition. And this hurts. That is why many people prefer to continue being falsely accepted rather than risk being truly seen. Yet something dies inside when this continues. You may receive affection, praise, attention, respect, but deep down, your soul knows when people are loving a role instead of your real presence. Al-Qushayri, in his Risala, shows that the Sufis treated vigilance over the heart as central. They were not obsessed only with what they did outwardly, but with what moved each gesture inwardly. This is a powerful key here, because the mask is not only what you show, it is the hidden intention of controlling how you will be seen. Removing the mask therefore also means loosening this addiction to managing the impression you produce. It means stopping the habit of living as the manager of your own image. Rumi also shows that what is false always becomes heavy. The false requires constant effort, maintenance, calculation, memory, tension. The true, although it demands courage, carries a living lightness. Not because it is easy, but because it does not require endless theater. Perhaps your exhaustion does not come only from life. Perhaps it comes from sustaining different versions of yourself in different environments. Speaking as expected, reacting as expected, shaping yourself as expected. This is exhausting because it is a silent war against your own essence. Attar deepens this insight in the Conference of the Birds, where the journey advances only when the birds pass through valleys in which the old self cannot survive intact. This connects directly with the fall of the mask, because the mask protects the old self. It wants to preserve its place, its acceptance, its predictability. But spiritual crossing demands loss, stripping away, accepting that you no longer fit into the mold that once guaranteed belonging. Few people enjoy this part. Everyone wants the freedom of truth, but few accept the social death of the old character. In Sufi language, the nafs can even dress itself in virtue in order to remain in control. This is decisive knowledge. The ego does not appear only in obvious vanity. It can appear in kindness used to be accepted, humility used to be admired, silence used to avoid rejection, gentleness used to hide cowardice. Therefore, removing the mask requires extremely fine sincerity. You begin to see that your beautiful behavior did not always come from truth. Sometimes it came from fear. Seeing this without self-deception is part of awakening. In practice, Stopping the maintenance of masks begins when you observe where your presence changes in order to be tolerated, with whom your voice shrinks, in what places your truth loses volume, in what situations you laugh without feeling, agree without agreement, accept without wanting, or over-explain yourself so as not to displease. The mask is not abstract. It lives in micro-gestures. It lives in the way you offer an edited version of yourself to the world. And the first real rupture happens when you stop calling this self-erasure normal and begin to recognize it as a serious cost of inner distance. Step 3. Identify where, with whom, and why you betray yourself every day. Identifying where, with whom, and why you betray yourself every day is a hard step because it removes the problem from abstraction and places the wound directly on the table. As long as pain remains vague, you can survive within it. But when you begin to see exactly where you erase yourself, with whom you diminish yourself, and why you sell your truth, the lie loses its comfort. In Sufism, this deeply resonates with the idea of inner vigilance and self-examination, explored by Al-Ghazali in his work on vigilance and self-accounting, Kitab al-Muraqaba wal-Muhasaba, where observing the soul and paying attention to its movements becomes a central part of spiritual work. Rumi helps illuminate this because he does not treat human pain as something random. He shows that there is a distance from the origin, and this distance manifests in concrete life, in small choices, in places where you stop being whole. The image of the flute separated from the reed bed at the opening of the Masnavi reveals a soul that suffers because it has been cut from its source. When you begin identifying your daily betrayals, you are hearing this inner lament more clearly and noticing where it becomes strongest. This step demands precision. It is not enough to say, "I am not being myself." You must see where it happens, in which conversations your voice loses strength, in which environments your presence shrinks, in which relationships you accept what wounds your soul simply to preserve the bond, in which routines you repeat what empties you. The Sufi tradition has always valued this refinement of inner perception, because without it, a person continues speaking about transformation while remaining blind to their own patterns. It is also necessary to identify with whom you betray yourself. This hurts more because it usually touches important bonds. Not every betrayal of the self happens in front of enemies. Often it happens in front of people you love, fear disappointing, or feel compelled to impress. So you adjust your voice, your intensity, your truth, your vocation, your courage. You edit yourself in order to maintain belonging. Classical Sufism valued sincerity and inner truth precisely because the pressure of other people's gaze can deform intention and distance the heart from what is real. But perhaps the deepest question is this: why do you betray yourself? And here we enter a subtle layer of the Sufi path. Sometimes you betray yourself not because you are weak, but because the nafs, the self that seeks protection, prestige, control, and security, has learned to survive that way. The technical language of Sufism emerged precisely to name these inner movements more carefully. When you ask, "Why do I betray myself?" the answer often passes through fear of rejection, hunger for validation, attachment to image, dependence on approval, and terror of losing a familiar identity. Al-Ghazali is valuable here because he connects intention, sincerity, vigilance, and self-accounting. This shows that the problem is not only the external act, but the hidden engine behind it. You can appear calm, kind, balanced, available, correct, and still be betraying yourself deeply if all of this is being driven by the fear of not being accepted. This is crucial knowledge. Betrayal of the self does not always appear as an ugly mistake. Sometimes it appears as virtue contaminated by fear. Al-Qushayri deepens this further by preserving the Sufi emphasis on guarding the heart from forgetfulness and orienting every breath toward truth. This perspective is powerful because it shows that the real issue is not merely correcting behavior, but interrupting the spiritual forgetfulness that infiltrates repeated actions. When you betray yourself every day, you are living in repeated forgetfulness. Identifying it is the beginning of awakening from that spiritual numbness. There is yet another level. Sometimes you betray yourself not before people, but before roles. The role of the child, the partner, the professional, the strong person, the agreeable person, the controlled person. The role begins as adaptation and ends as prison. Rumi repeatedly explores the difference between outer form and inner reality. When form replaces essence, the person becomes the guardian of a shell, and a shell may function socially, but it cannot generate deep life. Attar again offers insight in The Conference of the Birds, where the journey advances only when the birds confront their attachments and excuses. This tradition shows that the soul cannot awaken while preserving intact the mechanisms that keep it distant from its inner destiny. When you identify where and why you betray yourself, you begin to see your personal valleys. The valley of fear, the valley of dependence, the valley of self-image, the valley of spiritual comfort. In practice, this step requires concrete observation. Which situations make you opaque? Which people make you over-explain yourself? Where does your body contract? Where does your energy die? Where do you say yes with your mouth and no with your soul? This kind of attention closely resembles the spirit of muraqaba, watchful awareness, and muhasaba, inner accountability. It is not paranoia or excessive analysis. It is learning again to see the real cost of the small falsities you have normalized. There is an even subtler knowledge. You can betray yourself so often that you begin to call the betrayal your personality. Repetition creates an apparent identity. After years of silence, you think you are naturally quiet. After years of pleasing others, you think you are naturally flexible. After years of shrinking yourself, you think it is humility. The Sufi path always fought this kind of self-deception because the heart must distinguish between true nature and distorted habit. Without that distinction, you end up protecting the wound while believing you are protecting yourself. Step 4. Confront the fear of rejection that blocks your true expression. Confronting the fear of rejection that blocks your true expression is inevitable, because almost every mask remains standing because of that fear. You do not hide simply because you want to hide. You hide because, at some point, you learned that showing who you are could cost you love, belonging, approval, or peace. So you adjust, correct yourself, soften yourself, edit yourself. And this looks like prudence, but often it is emotional slavery. Sufism deepens this insight when it insists on sincerity, true intention, and the liberation of the heart from the gaze of others. Al-Ghazali treats intention, sincerity, and truth as central spiritual realities, not as minor moral details. Rumi helps illuminate this point deeply because his work revolves around a call to leave the superficial life and return to the center. The fear of rejection traps you precisely on the surface. It makes you prefer being accepted for a false image rather than risk being seen in your truth. And this is an intimate tragedy, because when you are loved only for the edited part, your soul remains hungry. The image of the flute separated from the reed bed in the opening of the Masnavi reveals a pain of separation that is not merely metaphysical. It also illuminates the suffering of someone living far from their inner origin. The fear of rejection is so powerful because it touches a basic human need, belonging. But there is a decisive point here. Belonging in a false way demands too silent a price. You remain in the group, remain in the relationship, remain in the structure, but you disappear inside it. Your voice loses strength, your presence loses density, your truth begins to seem dangerous, and so you gradually accept a form of love purchased with self-erasure. The problem is not merely psychological, it is spiritual, because a heart trained to hide gradually loses intimacy with its own truth. The ancient Sufis knew that the heart can become occupied with concerns other than God and truth. Al-Qushayri, in the Risala, preserves the emphasis of the masters on guarding the heart, observing inner states, and refusing to be governed by forgetfulness. This speaks directly to the fear of rejection, because that fear fills the center of the heart with the judgment of others. You stop asking, "What is true?" and begin asking, "How will I be received?" This exchange seems small, but it changes the entire direction of the soul. There is a more subtle knowledge here. Not every rejection frightens you because of what it is now. Much rejection frightens you because it touches older rejections. The present activates memories of the heart. You enter a conversation, a relationship, an exposure, or a decision, and your body reacts as if it were still trying to survive past losses. You are not only afraid of that person or situation, you are afraid of the echo of old pain. A serious spiritual path does not ignore this. It asks for lucidity. It asks you to recognize when your present life is being governed by old wounds that still dictate how you present yourself. Al-Ghazali is valuable here because he connects sincerity and intention to the inner axis of the being. This helps dismantle a common confusion. A person believes they are being good, calm, flexible, or reasonable, when in reality they are simply avoiding rejection. This is a rare and decisive point. The fear of rejection can disguise itself as virtue. It may appear as excessive delicacy, excessive accommodation, excessive silence, excessive diplomacy. Outwardly, everything seems beautiful. Inwardly, the soul knows it is shrinking to avoid risk. Rumi does not lead a person toward lukewarm comfort. He leads toward a truth that burns, and this matters greatly here, because confronting the fear of rejection does not mean suddenly becoming fearless. It means accepting that you may have to lose certain forms of acceptance in order to stop losing yourself. This is the real fire of the process. You begin to realize that the question is no longer only who will accept me, but how much of myself am I still willing to sacrifice just to remain accepted? When this question becomes serious, awakening gains strength. In many Sufi texts, the illness of the self appears connected to the desire for status, image, prestige, and security. The nafs wants to be preserved. It wants to avoid threat. It wants to remain in control. The fear of rejection then becomes a weapon of the defensive self. It convinces you that any real expression is too dangerous. Yet while it protects you from the pain of rejection, it also protects you from the life of being true. This creates a refined prison. You survive socially, but you wither spiritually. There is also the dimension of spiritual sobriety, strongly associated with Junaid of Baghdad. This helps place this step correctly. Confronting the fear of rejection is not creating a scene, not shouting authenticity in order to appear free, not turning truth into performance. It is something more sober and stronger. It is allowing your life to align more with reality than with approval. Speaking when you must speak, remaining silent when you must remain silent, acting when you must act, but without letting the primary criterion be fear of the external gaze. This sobriety cleans true expression of exhibitionism and returns it to the axis of being. In practice, this fear must be observed in concrete situations. At what point do you start explaining yourself too much? With whom do you lose spontaneity? Where does your speech change in order not to disturb? Where is your spiritual, emotional, or existential vision compressed so you will not seem too intense? Where do you trade truth for likability? These are living questions, and they resemble the spirit of vigilance and self-examination that Al-Ghazali describes. Without this examination, you may continue saying that you want to express who you truly are while remaining governed by the old reflex of never displeasing anyone. Another deep layer is this: the fear of rejection does not disappear first, so that you can express yourself afterward. Often it begins to lose power precisely when you express yourself despite it. This matters because many people wait to feel completely secure before being true, but it almost never works that way. The heart matures in the crossing. Dignity grows in the act. Strength is born through use. When Sufism speaks of stations and states, It shows that transformation happens along the path lived, not merely in theories about the path. Step 5. Silence the excess of external noise in order to hear your inner truth. Silencing the excess of external noise in order to hear your inner truth is indispensable, because no one can awaken their best version while living constantly captured by the voices of others, the rhythm of others, the anxieties of others, and the expectations of others. A soul surrounded by noise begins to forget its own sound. And this forgetting is dangerous because the person continues moving, choosing, and reacting, yet no longer knows whether they are living by truth or by contamination. In Rumi's path, this touches a central point. The human being must return inward in order to rediscover the center that has been covered. External noise is not merely physical sound. It is too many opinions, too much comparison, too many stimuli, too much urgency, too much information, too many images, too many distractions. It is living in a state of constant invasion. It is spending so much time absorbing the world that you can no longer distinguish what you truly feel from what has been implanted in you. When this happens, your life stops being expression and becomes reflection. You begin responding to the environment instead of responding to the truth of the heart. And your best version does not awaken because it is not born from excessive influence. It is born from inner listening. Rumi repeatedly returns to the theme of inner withdrawal, emptiness, and openness to what lies deeper than the noise of the ordinary mind. In the Sufi path, the heart is not merely an emotional detail. It is the place of living perception, but a heart that is too occupied with the world loses sensitivity, not because it has lost truth, but because it has been suffocated. It is like a spring covered by stones. The water is still there, but access has been blocked. Silencing the excess of external noise means beginning to remove those stones. Many people believe they are lost, when in reality, they are simply overexposed. They are listening to too many voices, consuming too many directions, trying to correspond to too many maps. How can inner truth be heard under such conditions? How can you recognize your best possible version if every moment another image of life, success, value, beauty, or identity is thrown upon you? Noise does not merely distract. Noise deforms. It pushes you toward versions of yourself that appear desirable but do not arise from your essence. In Sufism, there is an important distinction between what comes from a clear heart and what comes from an interior filled with dispersion. Many masters insisted that remembering the real requires the reduction of distraction. This does not mean fleeing the world in an unhealthy way. It means refusing to allow the world to dominate the inner axis of the soul. If everything enters, everything speaks, everything weighs, and everything decides for you, then your inner truth becomes increasingly weak at the surface of consciousness, not because it died, but because it lost space. Silencing external noise is also difficult because noise is addictive. It creates the sensation of movement, companionship, filling, and control. Remaining in silence, even for a short time, can be frightening for someone who has spent years fleeing from themselves. In silence, questions arise that noise managed to postpone. Pain appears that distraction kept occupied. Truths emerge that constant busyness prevented from maturing. That is why so many people prefer drowning in stimulation rather than facing their own soul without anesthesia. Your inner truth rarely shouts the way fear shouts. It does not compete well with excessive screens, excessive opinions, excessive demands, excessive comparisons. It speaks more quietly. It requires more presence. It appears through subtle signals, persistent discomforts, small clarities, returning intuitions, unease that refuses to disappear. But to notice these things, you need inner space. You need less invasion. You need to step out, even for moments, from the state of constant reaction in which most people live. Rumi helps clarify this because his language always pushes the reader beyond the surface. He does not want a person merely informed. He wants a person touched, moved, transformed from within. And this never happens inside a saturated interior. A saturated interior may accumulate beautiful phrases, profound ideas, and spiritual symbols, yet remain incapable of hearing the real direction of the soul. The best version of yourself does not arise from accumulation. Often, it arises from clearing. It emerges when you stop allowing everything to speak inside you at the same time. There is also a difference between true silence and empty isolation. True silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is the reduction of interference. It is the creation of a space where consciousness can breathe without constantly being pulled outward. It may happen during time alone, during a walk, in a pause without screens, in prayer, contemplation, or honest writing. The exact form matters less than the principle, reclaiming an inner territory where your perception becomes your own again, rather than a sum of external pressures. In practice, this step begins when you observe what most steals your center, which environments scatter you, which content makes you feel artificial, which people leave your mind excessively confused, which habits destroy your presence, which excesses push you away from what you feel most deeply. Not all noise is equal. Some only exhaust you, others deform you. Recognizing this difference is essential because silencing external noise is not a generic gesture. It is a conscious cut from the sources that distance you from yourself. This step also demands courage, because when you reduce noise, your inner truth begins to appear with greater clarity. And it is not always comfortable. Sometimes it reveals that you are in the wrong place, the wrong routine, the wrong role, the wrong relationship, the wrong rhythm. Noise helped postpone this encounter. Silence brings it closer. That is why many people say they want clarity while living intoxicated with distraction. True clarity changes life, and changing life is more frightening than remaining confused. Step 6. Abandon habits, environments, and roles that weaken your soul. Abandoning habits, environments, and roles that weaken your soul is an inevitable consequence for anyone who truly wishes to awaken their best possible version. Because it is not enough to perceive, not enough to feel, not enough to understand, not enough to be moved. If your life continues organized around what empties you, your truth will remain suffocated. Rumi does not guide anyone toward a decorative spirituality. The deeper movement of the path is to leave what distances you and approach what gives life. And this always demands renunciation. Not every loss is defeat. Sometimes losing what weakens you is the beginning of your dignity. Many people want to become more authentic without touching the structure that feeds their falseness. They want more presence, but remain tied to habits that dull the heart. They want to express who they truly are, but continue frequenting environments where their soul shrinks. They want inner strength, but continue performing roles that require constant self-erasure. This does not work. Your best possible version does not grow in poisoned soil. It needs space, coherence, and environments, inner and outer, that are at least somewhat compatible with the truth trying to be born. In Sufism, there is no deep transformation without detachment, and detachment here does not mean despising life. It means ceasing to cling to what prevents the heart from aligning with the real. Many masters insisted that certain companions, excesses, and attachments keep the human being trapped in distraction, heaviness, and forgetfulness. This touches your theme directly because habits, environments, and roles are not neutral. They shape what gains strength within you. They either nourish or suffocate the soul. They either help your truth breathe or force it to hide even more. Rumi is profound here because behind his poetic language there is a real demand for inner displacement. It is not only about feeling the call, it is about responding to the call, not only perceiving the fire, but leaving what extinguishes it, not only admiring truth, but reorganizing life around it. And here lies a difficult point. There are things in your routine that may seem small, but drain your center every day. There are environments that do not destroy you instantly, but weaken you gradually. There are roles that do not appear false at first glance, but require a constant reduction of your own essence. Abandoning habits that weaken the soul requires observing concrete repetitions: what you consume, how you speak, how you react, what you do when you feel empty, what you use in order not to feel, what you repeat to avoid confronting reality. Not every harmful habit looks obviously harmful. Some appear dressed as comfort, entertainment, relief, productivity, obligation, or normality. But the deeper criterion is this: does this make you more present, more whole, more true, or more scattered, more opaque, more distant from yourself? That question alone begins to separate what nourishes from what corrodes. Environments also possess far greater spiritual and emotional power than most people admit. There are places where your consciousness expands and places where your soul enters defensive mode. There are conversations that awaken life and conversations that flatten the being. There are contexts where you remember who you are and contexts where you automatically begin performing again. Sufism has always taken seriously the influence of company, atmosphere, and the direction of companionship, because no one remains unchanged in what they repeatedly inhabit. You absorb rhythm, language, desire, fear, worldview, and afterward you call it your own will. This step becomes even more difficult when it involves roles, because roles are not merely external functions. They are identities you have learned to sustain: the strong one, the agreeable one, the calm one, the available one, the responsible one, the one who endures everything, the one who never disturbs, the one who always understands, the one who always yields, the one who always holds everything together. Many of these roles appear as virtues, yet sometimes they are only refined forms of self-denial. And as long as you remain loyal to the role that weakens your soul, you remain unfaithful to the truth trying to emerge within you. In the Sufi path, there is a constant struggle against everything that crystallizes the self into a false form. The problem is not fulfilling functions in life. The problem arises when the function devours the being, when the role replaces presence, when social identity occupies the place of inner truth. Rumi points in many ways toward the necessity of crossing the shell and touching the essence. This means you cannot continue measuring your life only by what works externally. You must also measure it by what happens within your heart. There are lives that are socially correct yet spiritually dead. Abandoning what weakens the soul does not mean impulsively destroying everything. It means beginning to break, with clarity, from what is clearly draining your truth. Sometimes it begins with small renunciations: one habit less, one exposure less, one environment less, one role sustained with less blind obedience, one more truthful sentence, one boundary set, one refusal spoken. The real path is almost always built through concrete acts, not through grand speeches about authenticity, but through silent cuts in what drains your life. This step also requires mourning, because yes, abandoning what weakens your soul can hurt even when it is right. You may miss what was familiar. You may feel guilt for no longer sustaining certain expectations. You may fear disappointing people who only knew how to relate to your smaller version. You may feel emptiness between a role that has fallen and a truth that is still taking shape. This is part of the process. Not every pain is a sign of error. Often it is simply the price of crossing from an old life into a more aligned one. In practice, this topic demands difficult questions. What do I repeat that diminishes me? Where do I feel weak in my soul? Which environments make me artificial? Which role requires continuous betrayal from me? What in my life seems normal but weakens me? What am I maintaining out of fear and calling responsibility? What am I tolerating out of attachment and calling maturity? These questions are not meant to create paranoia. They are meant to restore discernment, to stop treating spiritual exhaustion as if it were an inevitable routine. Step 7. Align your thoughts, choices, and actions with what you feel at the deepest level. Aligning your thoughts, choices, and actions with what you feel at the deepest level is the moment when truth stops being merely an emotion and begins to become a way of life. Feeling deeply is not enough. Many people feel, perceive, intuit, become moved, recognize something real, yet continue living against what they have seen. That division destroys a person from within. Rumi pushes the individual toward a transformation in which the inner and the outer no longer live in conflict. The path is not to feel one thing and live another forever. The path is to bring life closer to the truth of the heart. In Sufism, the heart is not merely the place of passing emotion. It is treated as the center of spiritual perception, and therefore it is not enough that it feels something beautiful. It must be obeyed when it recognizes what is real. When Rumi speaks about polishing the heart like a mirror, he is not speaking about sentimentalism, but about a cleansing that allows the invisible to be reflected with greater clarity. If the heart perceives truth and life remains misaligned with it, the pain grows stronger, because truth has been seen but not followed. This step is difficult because it destroys a very common illusion, the idea that inner depth alone transforms a person. It does not. You may have intense moments of clarity and still remain trapped in the same gestures, the same concessions, the same choices, the same fears. Then what was meant to liberate begins to wound even more, because you feel the contrast between what touches your soul and the way you continue living. The best possible version of yourself is not born only from perception. It is born when perception becomes direction. Al-Ghazali deepens this insight significantly. In his works on intention, sincerity, vigilance, and self-examination, he insists that the axis of spiritual life is not only knowing the good, but ordering intention and action according to the truth that has been recognized. This speaks directly to your theme. Thought, choice, and action cannot keep pulling in different directions. When your heart points toward a center, but your decisions continue obeying fear, you remain divided. And a divided soul cannot express who it truly is. There is a subtle insight here. Not everything you feel deeply is emotional impulse. In classical Sufism, great care is taken to distinguish the raw impulse of the nafs from the clearer perception of the heart. This distinction is central in works such as Al-Qushayri's Risala and in Al-Ghazali's writings on inner discipline. Aligning life with what lies deepest within you does not mean obeying every intense desire. It means learning to recognize what arises from the anxious ego and what emerges from the truest center of the being. Because of this, alignment requires refinement. You must observe what within me wants to flee, possess, control, appear impressive, conquer, be admired, and what within me asks for truth, coherence, clarity, presence, courage, surrender. Without this discernment, a person may believe they are following the soul when in reality they are simply obeying desire disguised as depth. Rumi and the Sufi masters do not push toward impulsiveness. They push toward a pure fidelity to what is real. Aligning thoughts, choices, and actions also means stopping the habit of living in permanent promise. Many people think correctly, speak correctly, even understand correctly, but act too late every time. This creates inner erosion. You begin to lose respect for yourself because your soul knows that truth was recognized but not honored. Al-Ghazali emphasizes this strongly when speaking about self-examination. Observing yourself is not enough. You must account for what you do with what you have seen. This is where spirituality stops being mental decoration. Rumi is especially profound when he insists that the path is a movement of real transformation, not merely admiration for the sacred. In his tradition, love is not passive. Love moves. Love reorganizes. Love demands response. If, in the depths of your being, you feel called to live with greater truth, but your choices continue serving the old structure, something remains broken. The heart has spoken, but life has not listened. And as long as this continues, your best version will remain more intuited than embodied. Alignment begins in small fidelities. What you accept or refuse, what you maintain or interrupt, what you nourish or empty, where you say yes, even though your soul says no, what you keep postponing even though you clearly feel the time has already come. The Sufi tradition has always valued this delicate inner work because it knows that great transformation is not decided only in extraordinary moments, but in small coherences repeated over time. There is also a powerful image surrounding the mirror of the heart. If the mirror is being polished, life must begin reflecting that clarity. It makes no sense to speak of inner clarity while actions grow increasingly clouded. When thought, choice, and action begin to approach inner truth, a different kind of strength appears. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you stop fighting against yourself. In practice, this step requires simple and difficult questions. What do I say I value, but still do not live? What has my heart already understood that my routine still betrays? In which choices do I continue obeying fear, even though I know where the truth lies? Where have my thoughts changed while my actions remain old? This kind of examination resembles muhasaba, the inner accounting of the soul. Without it, a person may remain emotionally moved by their own awareness, yet remain unfaithful to what that awareness reveals. Step 8. Begin expressing yourself with truth, even if it shakes old structures. Beginning to express yourself with truth, even if it shakes old structures, is the moment when awakening stops being merely internal and begins touching the real world. Up to this point, you may have perceived many things, felt many things, understood many things, but eventually truth must gain voice, form, gesture, limits, choices, presence. Rumi does not point toward a path where the soul only contemplates truth. He points toward a transformation in which the inner center begins reorganizing life outwardly. This step hurts because old structures are not only external situations, they are relationships, speech patterns, behavioral habits, silent agreements, spaces where you were accepted precisely because you remained predictable. When you begin expressing truth, those structures feel it. Some tremble, some resist, some close themselves, some even collapse. That is exactly why many people prefer to remain silent. Falseness preserves arrangements that truth inevitably shakes. In classical Sufism, sincerity is not merely a hidden purity inside the chest, it is coherence between the inner and the outer. Al-Ghazali, when writing about intention, sincerity, and truth, shows that truth has levels and cannot be reduced to feeling something beautiful. It demands uprightness of being. Beginning to express truth is precisely the process of reducing the distance between what your heart knows and what your life shows. Rumi is especially profound here because his language constantly moves from the hidden to the manifest, from the interior to the exterior, from the polished heart to the transformed life. The image of the heart as a mirror is decisive. If the heart has been polished, something from it must be reflected in concrete existence. It makes no sense to claim you have found truth within yourself while continuing to offer the world only old, cold, adapted versions of who you are. Mature inner truth naturally presses to be expressed, but here the Sufi masters preserve an important caution. True expression is not impulsiveness. It is not dumping everything out, hurting everyone around you, dramatizing authenticity, or turning sincerity into aggression. The tradition of Junaid, marked by sobriety, clarifies this well. Truth is not chaos. Truth is clean alignment. It is speaking, acting, and positioning yourself more faithfully to reality without turning your own liberation into an ego performance. Many people postpone this step because they still dream of an expression without cost. They want to be true without shaking anything. They want to reveal themselves without losing anything. They want change without disturbing the old order. But it rarely works that way. Old structures were built around your adapted version. When your voice changes, when your limits appear, when your presence becomes more truthful, what was built around your reduction begins to feel strange. That strangeness is not always an error. Often, it is a sign of real birth. Al-Qushayri deepens this by preserving a tradition where the heart, the spirit, and the inner secret are treated as real layers of the human being. Authentic transformation does not occur only on the social surface. It rises from deeper regions of the soul. When you begin expressing truth, you are not simply changing behavior. You are allowing something deeper to break through the shell of everyday life. There is also a harsh realization here. Expressing truth reveals who related to you and who related to your mask. While you were easy to mold, many relationships appeared stable. While you remained silent, everything seemed peaceful. While you accepted everything, almost no one felt uncomfortable. But when truth begins to appear, the real quality of those bonds becomes visible. And that can hurt, because it shows that part of the former harmony may have been purchased with self-erasure. In Sufi language, the nafs resists this step because it wants to preserve image, security, and control. It accepts the idea of awakening as long as nothing changes too much. It accepts the idea of essence as long as approval remains intact. It accepts the idea of truth as long as it costs neither status nor belonging. That is why expressing truth is so decisive. It is the moment when awakening stops being decorative and begins threatening the mechanisms that kept the defensive self in control. In practice, expression begins through small but real acts. Saying what you previously hid, refusing automatic agreement, declining what wounds your soul, speaking with less calculation, showing presence without apologizing for existing, holding a truthful perspective without retreating at the first discomfort. The spirit of vigilance and self-examination in Al-Ghazali helps here as well. Transformation is not only feeling more deeply, but acting more faithfully to what has been seen. Step 9. Repeat daily choices that strengthen your essence rather than the character. Repeating daily choices that strengthen your essence rather than the character is what transforms a moment of clarity into a real life. Awakening does not occur only through the shock of a strong realization. Awakening proves itself in repetition, in what you do when no one is watching, when fear returns, when the old habit calls, when the mask tries to regain control. Rumi does not point toward a truth of a single moment, but toward a path of continuous return to the center, and that return must be renewed. Many people experience one day of lucidity and then spend weeks, months, or years serving the old character again. They feel something profound, cry, understand, promise, yet continue feeding the old structure in daily life. That is why so much transformation dies early. Not because the vision was false, but because it was not protected by repeated choices. Essence must be nourished. The character must also be nourished. What you repeat each day determines which one grows stronger within you. In classical Sufism, this connects deeply with the discipline of remembrance and the constant vigilance of the heart. It is not enough to reach a high state of awareness and then fall back into forgetfulness. Many masters insisted that the human soul oscillates, becomes distracted, hardens, forgets. Therefore, return must be constant. This constancy is rare because it requires more than emotion. It requires fidelity, choosing again and again what brings you closer to truth. Rumi is profound when he shows that real love is not only ecstasy, but also permanence in the fire of transformation. Your essence does not strengthen only in moments when you feel inspired. It strengthens when you honor truth even on ordinary days. When you are tired, confused, or tempted to return to the old mask. Precisely then, repetition becomes sacred. There is a subtle insight here. The character also lives through repetition. It was built through habits, daily concessions, repeated fears, repeated silences, repeated adaptations. You cannot dissolve it only through dramatic decisions. It weakens when you stop feeding it in small ways, when you stop repeating the false phrase, when you stop accepting what erases your soul, when you stop acting only for the sake of image, when you begin choosing reality even in details. Al-Ghazali deepens this by treating self-examination not as a rare event, but as a constant practice. One must frequently account for the state of the heart, intentions, and actions. Otherwise, the old self quickly regains territory. If you do not examine what you are strengthening each day, you unknowingly return to serving what weakens your truth. The character loves automatism. Essence requires presence. Repeating choices that strengthen essence means creating practical fidelity to the heart, returning to silence instead of noise, truth instead of convenience, boundaries instead of self-erasure, presence instead of distraction, nourishment instead of anesthesia. It sounds simple, yet this is where life changes. Essence does not become stable only through profound spiritual insights, but when everyday life stops contradicting the center. In Sufi language, this work fights against forgetfulness. The heart forgets, the ego occupies space, the world invades, distraction grows. Therefore, return must be repeated. That is why the tradition of remembrance is so central. Remembering here does not mean recalling a beautiful idea. It means making truth present again. When this happens daily, even through small decisions, the character weakens and the axis of being strengthens. This step also requires spiritual patience. Many people want to feel completely transformed very quickly, but the soul matures like someone learning again how to inhabit their own house. There are layers, relapses, old reflexes, days when the mask returns strongly. That does not cancel the path. What matters is the direction you repeat. The character may still appear, but it no longer governs as easily when essence is consistently nourished. Practically, this step asks for daily discernment. What strengthened my essence today? What strengthened my character today? Where did I choose truth? Where did I still serve image? Where was I faithful to the heart? Where did I retreat to preserve approval? These simple questions carry immense power because they prevent inner sleep and keep the process alive. Step 10. Sustain the courage to live increasingly faithful to who you truly are. Sustaining the courage to live increasingly faithful to who you truly are is the final step. Because without courage, everything that came before can become awareness without embodiment. You may admit, perceive, silence noise, cut away what weakens you, align yourself, even begin expressing truth. But if courage is not sustained, the old structure finds a way to return. The best possible version of yourself is born not only from truth seen, but from truth sustained. And sustaining truth requires ongoing courage. Courage here does not mean the absence of fear. On the real path, courage rarely means immediate peace. It means continuing forward even while trembling. It means refusing to return to the old prison simply because it was familiar. It means remaining faithful to the heart even when the mind asks you to retreat, when the world demands adaptation, when the old identity begs to be preserved. Living faithfully to who you truly are is not comfortable at first. It is liberating, but usually demanding before it becomes light. Rumi is powerful precisely because he does not present transformation as something decorative or gentle. There is fire in his language. There is loss, dissolution, crossing. Love in his teaching does not merely comfort. It tears away what is false and pushes the soul toward greater fidelity to the real. That requires courage, because the old self does not disappear peacefully. It resists. It argues. It seduces. It tries to convince you that hiding again would be safer. Yet safety purchased through self-betrayal is still captivity. Sustaining courage means accepting that your life may never again fit certain old forms of belonging. Some people may feel uncomfortable. Some relationships may cool. Some roles may fall away. Some versions of yourself, once necessary, may become impossible to maintain. That hurts because part of you still wants to preserve everything. But awakening your truest version almost always requires enduring the collapse of structures that only existed because you were not fully present within them. This is the moment when many people retreat, not because they failed to understand truth, but because they felt its price. Living faithfully to your real self changes the entire geography of life. The way you speak, love, choose, tolerate, refuse, the soul eventually stands before a serious doorway. Continue living for old approval or step into a more truthful existence, even if it is more demanding. Spiritual courage ultimately means continuing to choose truth when it is no longer romantic, when it demands coherence, renunciation, endurance, and constancy. Real courage is not only the first rupture, it is refusing to undo that rupture when nostalgia for the old prison appears disguised as prudence. Sustaining this courage also means accepting imperfection. There will be days of oscillation, confusion, fatigue, doubt. Fidelity is not perfection. It is direction. It is knowing where the heart points and returning to that axis whenever you lose your way. The courageous person is not the one who never trembles, but the one who trembles and continues. There is deep dignity in this. Living faithfully to who you truly are restores something many people lost long ago: respect for themselves. Not the egoic pride of feeling superior, but the quiet respect of no longer abandoning your own soul. When courage is sustained, something in the soul breathes differently. There is less fragmentation, less theater, less exhaustion born from falseness. Life may still be difficult, but it becomes lighter because you are no longer fighting yourself. And this is decisive. Your best possible version is not an elevated character created to impress the world. It is a more integrated way of existing. It is when your heart, your voice, your choices, and your presence stop moving in opposite directions. It is when you no longer waste enormous energy managing image, hiding truth, filtering essence, negotiating your own soul. Your best version emerges when fidelity to your center becomes stronger than the need to please. Practically, sustaining courage means repeating this commitment in real situations, not retreating from truths you have already recognized, not surrendering your voice every time discomfort appears, not abandoning yourself simply to avoid tension, not calling a phase. What your soul knows is direction. It means continuing to choose what strengthens your essence even when the path feels lonely at first, because the crossing between a false life and a true one often includes a passage where you are no longer who you were, yet not fully who you are becoming. Perhaps the question now is no longer whether a truer version of you is trying to be born. The question is different. How many more times will you abandon yourself before realizing that your soul can no longer endure living hidden? How many masks must still fall before you feel the exact weight of what you have been pretending to be? What if your suffering was never about a lack of strength, but about betraying who you truly are every single day without noticing? What if your best version is not far away, but suffocating beneath everything you accepted in order to fit in, to please, and to avoid rejection? So tell me, what inside you must die so that your truth can finally breathe? What are you still protecting that is already destroying your soul? And most importantly, when this video ends, will you return to the same life, or will you finally begin listening to what Rumi has been trying to awaken within you from the very beginning?